Welcome, ladies, to the Village of Peace. We have just started our mission and our vision to bring a village of women together who are in the process of healing, who are in the process of relinquishing themselves from all of those things that are not them and becoming the true self. And then rising to that place where they begin to define and live their purpose. So I'm excited to be with you this morning. It is the 22nd of April. And today I want to present a devotion that will help us to renew the mind, strengthen the mind, and thrive. We are in the midst of COVID-19, and even in the midst of COVID-19, I know that we can thrive and move beyond surviving and becoming the ultimate and the best version of ourselves at this time. We're always progressing and building and becoming that new self. So I am excited about talking to you today about starting your day right. And, purifying the heart, the mind, and the spirit. I'm going to talk to you about changing your thoughts and the fact that if we change our thoughts, even a small number of us together who focus in the same direction will see our world change before our very eyes. And sometimes I think we don't know how powerful we are and how powerful our thoughts are. But if we actually think about every thought as a prayer, then we can begin to recognize that the place where we put our focus, whether it is at the bottom on her fingertips or whether it is at the top, all the way under the focus, wherever we zoom into, that is where our thoughts bring us. So I want to talk to you about Philippians 4 verse 8, and I'm reading from the Amplified version of the Bible. It says, whatever is true, whatever is honorable and worthy of respect, whatever is right and confirmed by God's word, whatever is pure and wholesome, whatever is lovely and brings you peace, right? Whatever is admirable and of good repute, and if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think continually on these things and center your mind and your heart on them and implant them in your heart. So we often, I think, when we think of people who are spiritual, we automatically put them into a religious framework. I've been trying to resist that framework for a little while now because it's hard for me to fit in any one place. I know where I stand. I am with Christ. But I think even as Christ walked the earth, it was hard for him to fit in anywhere. He was kind of, on the edge. And I actually had one person say that to me. It was a lady I wasn't even working there. I was an associate professor at Trinity Western University. And I remember speaking just with such love. And, I was always exuding my love and my admiration for Christ. And in this place where I thought it would be received well, it was actually resisted. And especially as I was growing and I was moving through my own, inner workings and kind of like breaking the mold of what, this Christianity thing is supposed to be about. She said to me one day, "You're always so on the edge." And at first I was like, what does that mean? And then I responded to her and I said, but Christ was on the edge too, because even though we think that Christianity, as Christ was presenting it, was acceptable in those days, it actually wasn't. Remember, they killed him, people. And so, we have to be very cognizant and remember that Christ was killed not because he was at this glorious center of populace, he wasn't popular. He was actually, on the edge. And though many saw results from engaging with him and miracles from, being in his presence, the healing and all of those things, the forgiveness. And we often think that forgiveness is not actually a miracle, but it's a huge miracle. And so he was on the edge, and very much outside of what was the religious norm. And as I began to think about that, I began to think, hey, that means I'm becoming more like Christ. And so from a very uncomfortable space at one time, I've now moved into that place of oneness, unity with Christ. And I know that means I don't quite fit in anywhere, because the joy and the true realization of Christ is not conformity to the world, but it's conformity to this way of thinking that is true, that is honorable, that is worthy of respect, that is in that place of wholesomeness, that is in that place of peace. And when you're in that place of peace, you don't make wars by creating these categories that we live in these days. Your life is not right because of this, or I must judge you and criticize you for this, and I must beat you over the head with the Bible in order to make you conform, in order for you to feel like you are good, or for me to feel like you are good. So I am asking us as a village of peace to now really begin to think on these things. What does it mean not to focus outward, but to focus inward? What does it mean to focus on myself becoming good, myself being worthy of respect, myself being that confirmed person of wholesomeness, that myself having inner peace? What does that mean? And as we contemplate all of that, I want us to contemplate something else. There's a lot of wisdom that is embedded in other ways of being, because God is all over the planet, not just in one part of the planet. And there's so much wisdom that has been given to others, and so much wisdom that is implanted in the heart of others that they write about, that they share because of their own beautiful experience. And eventually, when we come across those pieces of information, we have to just be able to look at it and go, what is here? And then be able to connect the dots to what we already know. And so I'm a great connector. I connect with people, I connect with places, I connect with words, I connect with ways of being. And so I've been reading a book written by a lady named Zara Mahoon. And she's been teaching me about thoughts. She's been teaching me about how to practically do what Paul told us in Philippians 4 verse 8, how to be true, how to be honorable, how to think on those excellent things. And so she was talking about our point of focus. And so I want to take you back to this particular slide. Where is your focus? Are your thoughts in that place where they are riddled with fear? Or are your thoughts in that place where they are just entrenched and soaking and beaming with light and love? So she talks about the fact that where your thoughts are is actually where you go. Where my thoughts are in terms of what I am desiring to come into my life is actually what I receive. And she gave a very good example. So for example, a student has an exam to write, and the student may say, I hope I don't fail that exam. Or the student may say, I hope I pass that exam, right? And of course, one brings you immediately down and one brings you immediately up. And so where we focus is then what happens. She talked about something like, when you speak a thought, it becomes a prayer. And oftentimes we tend to think that God is with us only when we sit down in a very formal way and pray. But if we begin instead to think about every thought as we go through the day, we're like this. And we're actually praying that thing that we're thinking about, right? So as we pray that thing, it comes. And so one of the things that another example that she gave is if, for example, we say something and we're more purposeful in what we say. For example, we say, I want my marriage to improve. Or this marriage is horrible and it will never get better, right? But if the ultimate goal is, I want this marriage to rise to this glorious level that I thought it would have been when I married this person, then what happens is we begin to create that. So here's another point that she made. Oftentimes, when we are presenting a thought like, I desire this marriage that is full of intimacy, that is full of joy, that is full of personal knowing, that is full of cooperation, that is full of collaboration. I'm desiring a marriage that lifts me up, that allows me to lift my partner up. I'm desiring a marriage where our communication is full. It's filled with laughter. It's filled with all of these wonderful, magnificent things. And that's just one example. And look at how many prayers I spoke in just that 30 seconds that I was just talking right now. But if we begin to pray like that, then what happens oftentimes is we then begin to think of how can we do it in our own power. How can we make that happen? So then we begin to make a checklist. Well, I guess I should take a communication class. Well, I guess I should talk to my husband, and we begin the planning. Here's the suggestion. You actually block everything that is to come to you by trying to plan every step of the game. Instead, just focus on the bullseye. I want my marriage to look like this. And eventually what you begin to notice in your everyday life, all of a sudden, Google pops up and there's a little course on how to improve the communication in your life. All of a sudden, Dr. Joan comes up with, the Healthy Living Summit, and we are talking about toxic relationships. All of a sudden, your spouse begins to desire the same thing, begins to actually utter out loud some of those positive things that you have been desiring. And so what begins to happen naturally, without you focusing on the nitty-gritty steps, is the thing you want comes to you. But you have to speak it in love. You cannot speak it in fear. You cannot go to the dump like I talked about in one of the sessions. We go to that place of positivity versus going into that place of dark thoughts, dumping all the negativity. So as you move through your today, right, rather than your day, as you move through your today, as you move through your thoughts today, then be ever cognizant that your hands are like this, that you are actually saying a prayer that is to come. Even if you say something negative, you have the power to make it come. So now instead, begin to very purposefully say, instead, I will amplify my thoughts into that place of love, right? And so there is another verse that I would like to introduce you to, and this is 1 John 4, verse 18. 1 John 4, verse 17 talks about God being love. And it talks about the fact that the God of love cares for all humanity. And then in 1 John 4, verse 18, it says, there is no fear in love. That is, dread doesn't exist. You don't have to fear the outcome. But perfect or complete and full-grown love drives out fear, because fear involves the expectation of some divine punishment, so that the one who is afraid of God's judgment is not perfected in love. That is, has not grown into sufficient understanding of not only who God is, but God's love, right? And God is described as compassionate, patient, having this enduring, unending kindness towards thousands upon thousands of generations, forgiving, right? And also being righteous. that is standing firmly in a place where there is justice and mercy. That's what it means to be righteous, right? Where there's justice and mercy, right? And so God is desiring for us to be in that place of full maturity and understanding. And when we come to that place where we love completely, we're standing right next to him, right? And so begin to know that your prayers are answered the moment you have a thought. And now be very careful about the things you send out in your thoughts and the things you speak out loud, because everything that is within you is what comes. So have a wonderful day today. And as you go, continue to just center a thought for me. Center a thought on creating a village of peace where there is this wonderful group of women and who have a very minimalist kind of mentality, who are satisfied with living in a very, very small, tiny house, but having every provision already present, and having a village of other women living in their small, tiny houses, being completely satisfied with life, who can come together in a community and put their little tiny houses together in a village and begin to support, provide for, lift up, restore one another, help each other heal, and help each other become the best version of themselves. This is the village of peace that I spoke about in the first chapter of Becoming: The Journey to Love. And if you haven't gotten that book yet, please, it's available on Kindle for only $2.99. And I want you to know what the village of peace looks like, so that we can begin to manifest it. If I can dream of the village of peace, and if I can think about building it physically, and if I can think about building it online, then I want you to join with me in this prayer of manifesting this village where women come together from every background, from every creed, from every religion, but the agenda and the goal is to know God completely, to know his love completely, and to also begin to support one another as we journey together and make our world a better place. I know it sounds idealistic, but it's a prayer of mine. And I know God has already provided. So have a wonderful day. For those of you who are just watching, please, if you want to join us on WhatsApp, just send me a text at 647-500-2229 and just let me know you want to join the Village of Peace, and we will willingly accept you in. Have a great day, guys.